Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to draft a Princess Dart Bustier with a basque effect. So it's a very detailed tutorial and very beginners friendly. So don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you find it useful. Leave a comment, subscribe to my channel if you're yet to subscribe. So let's jump right into the video. So I have my pattern paper in a fold of 2 already, and I folded it using the biggest circumference of my body, which is my round hip measurements divided by 4, which is 11.5 inches, and I added some few extra inches to it for seam allowance. So the first thing is to draw out a starting line at the top of your paper, and that line is going to be the shoulder line. So from that line, I'll take my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches, my shoulder to my under bust 14 inches, my shoulder to my waistline 16 inches, and to the point where I want the Ankara fabric to stop at the side, which is 20 inches. So I'll go ahead to further extend these lines horizontally this way. I'll extend it horizontally. So I'll go ahead to label the line. The first is the shoulder line, the bust line, under bust, waistline, and like the full length of the Ankara. The next thing to do is to place the shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2. So place shoulder to shoulder measurements that you're working with divided by 2. For me, I have 8 inches, but since it's a sleeveless dress, I'm going to subtract 1 inch from the 8 inches, making 7 inches. And then from this point, I'll come down by my round armhole measurements divided by 2, which is 9 inches for me. And then I'll take out 1 inch since it's also a sleeveless dress, making 8 inches. I'll use my roller to just connect the 2 points together this way. And then I'll further extend the line to form the chest line. So I'll call this line the chest line. So the next thing to do is to place the neckline measurements. So for the wideness of the neckline, I'm making use of 4.5 inches from the closed angle of the paper. I'm going to take 4.5 inches. So you can see that the neckline is very wide from the thumbnail. And then for the depth of the neckline, I'll be making use of 5 inches. So you can decide to make yours lower depending on what you want for yourself. So I'll make it 5 inches for the depth. And I'll come over to this side and also come down by 5 inches just to make it accurate. And then I'll take my ruler and connect these 2 points together. And then I'll further connect it to meet the depth of the neckline. So because I don't want this edge to be pointy, I'm going to take my curved ruler and just form a little bit of curve at the point where the lines meet each other. So I'll just curve it out this way. And then when I'm cutting out, I would cut out this part. The shaded part will be cut out. So the next thing to do now is to place the dart on the bodice. So your dart measurement is your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So for me, I have 8 inches divided by 2. So that's 4 inches. So I'll go ahead to place 4 inches on all the lines, just as you can see me doing in the video. So you can decide to add your dart allowance to the pattern. You can add half an inch to whatever you got, but I'll be doing that while cutting on my fabric. So I just mark my 4 inches all the way down on all the lines. So after marking, I'm taking my ruler now to connect all the points together. I'll connect all the points together this way. So before we go ahead now to place the dart measurement, I'm going to take my shoulder slope and form my armhole curve. So I'll come over to the armhole line and just come down by 1 inch. This is going to give me my shoulder slope. And then from that 1 inch point, I'll connect it to meet my neck width this way, my neckline width. And then from that shoulder slope, I'm going to take the midpoint of this line, which is about 3.5 inches here. So I'll come over to the midpoint of the line that I marked and take 0.5 inches. And then on the chest line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches for me. And then I'll use my curved ruler now to connect these 3 points together to form my armhole curve. So after carving out the armhole, this is what it looks like. So the next thing is to place our dart measurements on the dart line. So I'll be placing my dart on the two sides of the line because it's a longer bodice. But if it's a half bodice, I'm going to be placing it on just one side. So on the closed angle of the paper, I'm going to take half an inch on all the sides. I'll take half an inch on the closed angle of the paper, and then I'll use my ruler to just connect the 3 points together. I'll connect it this way, and then coming over to the open angle of the paper, this other side, I'll place 1.5 inches on all the lines. So I have a tutorial on how to draft a princess dart for a half bodice. I'll leave that in the description box. So I'll take 1.5 inches on all the sides this way, and then I will connect the points together. So I took the 1.5 inches on the under bust, the waistline, and the full length of the Ankara part, and then I will just connect it together this way. So I'll go over now to my bust line and come down by 0.5 inches or 1 inch depending on you. This is just to avoid any pointy effects on the bust point. And then I'll take my curved ruler and just connect the points together just as you can see me doing in the video. So I'll connect this that leg to meet the bust points that I came down by 0.5 inches, and then I'll also connect the other side this way to meet the bust point. So this is all for the darts. So the next thing to do now is to place the armhole dart, since it's a princess dart bustier. So for the armhole dart, I'm going to first of all measure what I have on the cuff. So I have about 10 inches here, and then I'll take the midpoint, which is going to be 5 inches. So I'll measure 5 inches now and just mark that point this way. So from that 5 inches I marked, I'm going to take my curved ruler and connect it down to meet my bust line. So I'll just go ahead and curve it out this way. So after connecting, this is what it looks like. This is what we have. So right now, from the 5 inches mark again, I'm going to come down by 0.5 inches, or you can make use of 0.7 inches depending on you. So I'll make it of 0.7 inches for this particular one. So I'll come down by 0.7 inches from the 5 inches point, and then use my curved ruler to also connect it to meet the dart line this way. Connect it to meet it this way. So right now I'm going to extend this dart. Because of the dart we have there, I'm going to go ahead and extend it by the measurements I took, which is 0.7 inches. So I'll measure 0.7 inches there and just connect the lines together. And then I also extend the armhole on this side by the same 0.75 inches. This is so that by the time we join the dart point on the armhole together, it won't truncate the size of our armhole. So after doing that, this is what we have. So when you're cutting out, disregard the old armhole line as you'll be cutting out the newer one. So the next thing to do now is to place the round body measurements on the pattern. So on the chest line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches. And then I added 1 inch for this dart, making 11.5 inches that I have there already. So I'll just go ahead to just add 1 extra inch to it for seam allowance, making 12.5 inches. So I'll come over to the bust line and just place the same 12.5 inches I have on my chest line. So on the waistline, I'll place my round waist measurements divided by 4, and then I'll add the 2 inches for that to it and 1 inch for seam allowance, and then I'll go ahead to just place it there. And then on the full length, which is the point where the Ankara will stop on the side, I'll place my round hip measurements divided by 4. I'll add the 2 inches for that and then 1 inch for seam allowance, and then I'll go ahead to place it there. So after marking my measurements on the pattern, I'll take my ruler and just connect the points together. I just connect the points together this way. So after connecting it, this is what we have. So we are almost done with the front panel of this dress. So the last thing to do before we cut out is to place the basque effect on the center front of this dress. So I'll come over now to the closed angle of my paper, And then from the full length of the Ankara fabric, I'm going to come down now by 6 inches. So depending on how low you want or how deep you want your basque effect to be, you can take 7 8 inches, just depending on you. So but for me, I'm making use of 6 inches. And then from this point I marked as the full length of the Ankara fabric, I'm going to use my ruler now to form a slant from that point down to meet my 6 inches. I'll just form a slant this way down to meet my 6 inches. So this is what we have after connecting. So I'll go ahead now to extend my dart lines down to meet the basque, the slant line. So just extend it this way. So after extending, this is what we have. So you can see the basque effect and on the center front of the dress. So the next thing to do now is to cut out this pattern. So I'll go ahead now to cut it out. So watch closely and see the parts that I'll be keeping and the parts I'll be discarding. So just follow what I'm doing. This is one side of the bustier. I'll set it aside and cut the remaining parts. So after cutting out, this is what it looks like. This is what you should have as well. So I'll go ahead now and open up the pattern so that you guys can see what it really looks like. So after opening up, this is what it looks like. So you can see how it came out and how perfect it looks. So I'm going to set this aside now while we cut out the back patterns. So for the back panel, I've gone ahead to draw out the major lines that we'll be needing, just like I did for the front. But I took out 1.5 inches at the closed edge of the paper. This is going to be for the zipper allowance. So I'll be taking all my measurements before the zipper allowance so that it won't interfere with my measurements. So right now, I'll just take you guys through on how I came about these lines. So the first line is my shoulder line as usual, and then from the shoulder line to my bust point is 10 inches, and then to my under bust is 14 inches, and then the point where the basket effect will start, my high waist is 16 inches, and the point where the basket effect will start is 20 inches, just like I did for the front panel. So I'll go ahead to just label the lines out now. So the first thing to do is to place the shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2, which is 7 inches for this particular dress. So remember to take the 7 inches from before the zipper allowance, and then I'll come down by my round armhole measurements divided by 2, which is 8 inches, just like I did for the front panel. And then I'll use my roller to connect the points together. And then I'll further extend the line to form my chest line. So after doing that, the next thing to do is to place the neckline measurements. So for the wideness of the neckline, I'll be taking 4.5 inches, just like I did for the front panel. And then for the depth, I'll be making use of 3 inches. So the back neckline won't be as deep as the front neckline. And then I'll take my curved ruler and connect the 2 points together this way. So notice that you can use any neckline you want for your own. This is just what I'm working with. And then I'll take my shoulder slope, which is 1 inch, and then use my ruler to connect it to meet the neck width this way. So the next thing to do is to look for the midpoint of this line, which is 3.5 inches. I'll mark it there, and then on the chest line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches. And then I'll use my curved ruler to just connect the 2 points together to form my armhole curve. So after connecting, this is what it looks like. So the next thing to do now is to place our dart. So your dart is your nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. So for me, I have 4 inches. So from the zipper allowance there, I'm going to take 4 inches on all the lines. So I'll just mark my 4 inches here from the zipper allowance. I'll mark it on the waistline, the under bust, and then on the bust line. So I'll use my roller to just connect all the points together. So on this full length of my dress, I'm going to take 1 inch on both sides. But if you're on the small size, you can make use of 0.5 to 0.7 inches. And then on the bust line, I'll come down by half of an inch. And then using my ruler, I'll connect this point down to meet the bust line, and I'll connect the other points this way, forming a slant. So I'll go ahead to connect the other side. So after connecting, this is what we have. So you can decide to work with this dart the way it is. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we're making use of Princess Dart for the back as well. So right now, I'll come over to the armhole point and come down by 5 inches. And then from that 5 inches I marked, I'll just use my curved ruler to connect it down to meet the bust line. So after connecting, this is what we have. So just extended that leg to meet the armhole curve. So this is what you should have as well if you're working with a princess dart. So the next thing to do now is to place the round bust measurements. So on the bust line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, which is 10.5 inches, and then I'll add 1 inch to it for seam allowance. By the time I cut this dart point open, I'll just need like half an inch. So I'll just add half an inch to it, and then I'll mark it there so that it won't truncate the size of my armhole. And then on the waistline, I'll place my round waist measurements divided by 4, which is 9.5 inches, and I'll add 1 inch for that and 1 inch for seam allowance, making 11.5 inches. So just go ahead and mark it there. And then on this full length, which is the way the Ankara fabric will stop, I'm going to mark my round hip measurements divided by 4 plus the 2 inches for that. I'll add it to it and seam allowance, and then I'll go ahead to just mark it on the line. So after doing that, I'll take my ruler and connect the points together. So this is what we have after connecting the points. So just like we did for the front panel, we'll be taking the basque effect, which is 6 inches from the Ankara fabric, and then I'll use my ruler to just slant it out this way to give the basque waistline. And then I'll extend my darts down to meet the slant line. So after extending the line, this is what it looks like. The next thing to do now is to cut it out. So before I cut out, I'll be taking out my zipper bulge allowance. So I'll come over to the waistline, and then I'll come in by 0.5 inches. So just follow what you see me doing in the video. So from that 0.5 inches, I'm going to take my ruler and just slant it towards the upper part of the dress. So this thing I'm doing is just to avoid zipper bulging at the back. You know, the back of the human body is not exactly straight like that. There's a bit of curve. And then I'll take the from that same 0.5 inches, I'll slant it down to the lower part. So you can see what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to just make the line a bit bent the way the human back is, so that the dress can fit perfectly at the back. So I'll just extend the neckline this way and proceed to cut out the pattern. So this is all for the back panel of the dress. So I'll go ahead and cut it out this way. I'll open up the zipper point, and then I'll proceed to open up the dart point. So after cutting, this is what it looks like. So I'll go ahead to open it up and show you guys what it looks like. So after opening up the patterns, this is what it looks like. So this is what we have for the back panel. So I'll go ahead now to use this pattern to cut on my fabric. These are the number of pieces we have. So notice that while I'm cutting on my fabric, I'm going to add half an inch to all the dart points so that by the time I attach it together, it's still going to go back to the same 4 inches. So all the points I opened up, I'm going to add half an inch to each and every one of it. So guys, this is where we'll be ending this video for today. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, turn on your notification bell so that by the time I post another video, you'll get notified for it. So I'll just show you guys the front panels now, cut them out on the fabric, and then I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.